Hey, good day, folks, and welcome to another edition of Lumberjack Logic. I'm your host, Neil Johnson. I've got a great show for you here coming up, okay? I've got a special guest. I'm going to bring him in just a couple minutes, but we're going to be talking about what went on in Wisconsin and what is the truth of what went on in Wisconsin. So do me a favor, if you would, please smash that like, chat in with where you're from. Let's help get this stream out to more people because we're going to be covering a lot of issues. We're hearing a lot of voices right now coming out about what happened in Wisconsin. We didn't have enough engagement, yet in fact, Seth Keshel had posted, we had well over 1 million Republicans get out there and vote. So we had higher engagement than we've ever had in Wisconsin in one of these types of elections. We're also hearing that we just didn't do enough door knocking. We didn't do enough canvassing, get off the vote. We've heard that we didn't raise enough money. We've heard a lot of things. And we've also seen impossible numbers. So the question is, what really happened in Wisconsin? We're going to dive into this today. So again, please smash that like, chat in with where you're from, help get this stream out to more people. But I want to mention my sponsor really quickly, and then I'll bring in the guest, and that's MyPillow. MyPillow.com. Use promo code Lumberjack, folks, or go to MyPillow.com/Lumberjack. The exclusive offers off my page are right here, but you go to MyPillow.com/Lumberjack. But when you order, I always encourage people, when you order, go call them. 1-800-568-2865. Again, that's 1-800-568-2865, and give those operators who work from home some business, a chance to make their income as well. And right now, though, the Percale sheets, $29.98 for queens, $34.98 for kings. It's the best deal you'll ever see on those sheets. So go check that out. All right. Without any further ado, I'm going to pull this out, bring in our special guest for the day, David Clements. We had a good dinner out at the inauguration.
That's right. Hey, it's good to see you, Neil.
Good to see you. Yeah. And George was there, and Dave Sessler, there's another person who should be in the United States House and is not. And one of the last people to vote to impeach Trump, Dan Newhouse, is sitting in that seat. There's a lot I could go into on that, but we're not going to go into that. I want to talk about Wisconsin. I want to talk about Trump's executive order, and I want to talk about the state house seat we lost in Pennsylvania, and how this relates to the executive order. Now, first off, I'm going to just start with this question out of the gates. If Trump's executive order had been in place, right, or had been enforced at this point, would we have won Wisconsin?
Your chances would have improved drastically. So the EO is not perfect, but what it does is it requires enforcement. In other words, there's law on the books under federal law that if we had complied with it, we would see benefits of that. So, for instance, there's this thing called voluntary voting system guidelines, are known as the VVSGs. There's a requirement that you have to be up to date, which is 2.0. No one in the country is up to date to 2.0. So if he means what he says, the EAC would have to decertify the machines. See what I'm saying? So it's a matter of, if you actually follow everything by the letter of the law, and Trump's got the ability to do this thing called defunding. So here, look, you want my money. You want the HAVA funds, the Help America Vote Act funds. You have to follow the parameters of the executive orders. So it's got teeth. So in the sense that you could decertify machines and have paper-based elections, absolutely it would help. To the degree that you got state clerks and election officials not complying with it and still using bad practices, the big issue that I see that manifested itself in Wisconsin and in Pennsylvania is you still have early voting, which gives all of the bad actors chances to see what the real tallies are. Basically, you've got software, absentee ballot tracking software, and you can see how many registered absentee ballots are requested and returned. Likewise, you can do that in the Democrat column. And so you can get a running tally and see what the delta is to generate fraudulent ballots, which have no chain of custody, and start dumping them into drop boxes. So as long as you have that infrastructure, you're going to continue to run into this battle of narratives. So on the one hand, you've got Conservative Inc., led by Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, Scott Pressler. And what are they doing right now? They're basically flogging Republican voters, saying, shame on you. You guys didn't have enough excitement. You didn't, turn out the vote. Yet you just opened the show with Seth Keshel's analysis, which is we're finding that the voter turnout from Republicans historically is at its best. It's never been better. It was never better in 2020 when Trump, quote unquote, lost. So what we're trying to educate people on the other half through messaging that I'm behind is that you're not up against enthusiastic ballot chasers in the Democrat side. You're up against software. You're up against a keystroke that is constantly monitoring turnout. And all they've got to do is generate and find more ballots. And that's what they did in Wisconsin. So despite the fact that you have a historic turnout for a Supreme Court justice candidate, the bad guys can sit back and wait. And that's exactly what they did in Wisconsin.
Well, let's read what Charlie Kirk has to say. I like Charlie Kirk. I mean, I'm just gonna, I do. I mean, he's a brilliant guy, actually. I mean, I played a video of his yesterday that was so good, talking about the foundation of our nation and whatnot. So I think that we're dealing with two different paradigms completely when people come into this and how they're thinking. And I think you have people who have been involved in retail politics for so long that they want to just do retail politics. And so this is what Charlie said. We must realize and appreciate that we are the low propensity party now. The party has been remade. Now, on that point, one thing I am going to mention here, David, is, being a guy who shows up at his precinct caucuses, and, I got to admit, it's bizarre to me how few people will show up. So I do want to state that. I mean, but again, if I go to Seth Keshel's, which I would have, well, that's Peter Berniger's. Let me go to, actually, I can just go to my page on X, because I retweeted Seth Keshel's, and I think this is important for people to know and understand. But Brad Scheimel, here we go. Can you see that there? Here we go, right there. Brad Scheimel's 1.063 million votes last night was higher than any Democrat vote total in the history of any Wisconsin Supreme Court race. He lost by 10 points. Turnout ain't the issue, folks. Dems have mastered ballot harvesting over the lengthy early voting period and can figure out with basic math where their opponent is likely to wind up in order to get them over the top. The country cannot survive with mail-in voting. So that goes to your point.
Of course it does. Look, we have to follow the money. I mean, I will concede that Charlie Kirk and Turning Point on the red meat, on 90% of conservative issues, they hit it out of the park. But when they're behind things like early vote action, these PACs, and they're generating millions of dollars for initiatives that support the status quo, you have to start asking questions. Like, okay, so case in point, Act Blue has been in the news. Most people on both sides of the aisle have conceded that Act Blue is heavily involved in money laundering. And I bring this up for a reason, because Turning Point has partnered with WinRed, which is the counterpart of Act Blue. And the work of Peter Benegger, Drazza Smith, Chris Gleason, many others have confirmed that WinRed has also been used for money laundering. So when I see texts round the clock from WinRed, and I get a message from Scott Pressler saying, hey, this is Scott, we need you to support us and make a donation to WinRed, this is a massive red flag, because it shows that we're not taking these issues seriously. So I can give you story after story of why I think there's a vested interest on Turning Point willfully ignoring election fraud and the use of machines. Charlie was confronted at a pastors conference in Las Vegas over the use of rigged machines. He gaslit one of the pastors by the name of Andy Thompson. And the person that came to Charlie's defense was a guy by the name of Bob List. Well, if that name sounds familiar, that's the former governor of Nevada, who is now a lobbyist for Dominion in Nevada. And so when you've got people that are carrying water for the dominions of the world, have PACs that are set up to maintain early voting, the use of mail-in ballots, and ignoring the machine's carte blanche, you know, I think we have to follow the facts. And at the end of the day, when you look at just 2020 in particular, one of the most glaring statistics that we saw time and time again was voter turnout. If we just accept that 74 million votes for Trump is true, and I don't know if it is. I know that 81 million certainly wasn't true for Biden, but let's just take it on its face.
Yep.
And at 74 million plus 81 million, you would have had, based on the voter registration file, a 95% turnout. No one believes that there was a 95% turnout of registered voters in 2020.
Well, let's ask the audience. Let's in the chat here. Does anybody believe there was a 95% voter turnout in 2020? Anybody? Yes or no? Do you believe that there was 25% voter turnout? I mean, I can't believe 95%. I mean, I've never seen 95% like on anything.
The history of voter turnout in presidential elections has usually hovered between 55 and 62%. So yes, if you go back 50 years, the notion that we would have seen a 40% trajectory and improvement in voter turnout in 2020 is absurd. And so when we start looking at all the graphs of elections before 2020 and after, we're still looking for the 20 million voters that didn't turn out to vote, that somehow turned out to vote in 2020. So I bring this up from a standpoint, if you can see that those numbers aren't real, you're not dealing with legitimate turnout of real people. You're seeing turnout of a ballot that's tied to a real person, and it's being cast for that person. But in many respects, it's a no propensity voter or a low propensity voter that has no idea that a fraudulent ballot has been generated in their name and submitted in a drop box.
Or an illegal alien voter, because we just saw the Social Security report the other day on that.
Exactly. And so one of the things I push back with the Turning Point folks is that ballot chasing drums up this idea that we have to out hustle the Democrats by scouring nursing homes for spare ballots or college dorm rooms.
Nursing homes. That's a Wisconsin thing. If ever that was.
That's not how they're winning. They're winning because they have integrated software that's tied to the Runbecks of the world. These are ballot printing operations on an industrial scale. And so I actually met with a congressional representative. I can't disclose who, but I saw video after election day, the day after. And there was a congressional delegation that visited Runbeck in Arizona. This is a 147,000 square foot operation. And they found that the machines were still on, meaning they were printing ballots after election day. There were pallets with tens of thousands of ballots that were being loaded onto Penske trucks headed for California, Nevada, Utah, throughout Arizona, and also Colorado. So I saw the video, I saw the pictures of this. And so what you're up against is an industrial operation. And until we get our heads around that, and people like Charlie and Scott can see that this is happening, how can you expect to win? And the significance of this is pretty apparent. Who was the U.S. Senate candidate in Nevada? Sam Brown. He should have won, but he didn't because ballots kept showing up. Carrie Lake, rock star, she didn't win. Right? And so
again, and what there's interesting numbers on that race I could even show in comparison to this one. This had even a higher turnout. I got to pull this in quick. We got to talk about this. And I've got a clip from your movie that you did that I want to pull in as well. There's so much to cover on this subject, but look here. Does anybody think that this is real? Now you have to understand too, she got more votes in Dane County than Milwaukee County. Now, for those who don't know Wisconsin, Milwaukee County, I should look up the population because I don't want to give false numbers. I think Milwaukee County is about twice as much in population as Dane County. And I should look that up here while your video is playing for people. But 82%, this is like districts, little teeny districts in New York City, these numbers. 82-18? That just seems unfathomable. I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying.
Neil, who won? Did Trump or Kamala Harris win Wisconsin in November?
Yeah, Trump.
Okay, so that's important to point out. And then you also have voter ID somehow passing, but Susan Crawford comes out ahead, where one party is much more congruent with the idea that voter ID is okay. So you're seeing these discrepancies that, okay.
Although I will say this much on voter ID, and I've always said this, I think that voter ID, they should be running as constitutional amendments on ballots in every single state, because it is popular. It well surpasses. It's not strictly a Democrat Republican issue, because Democrats actually think that the Republicans are stealing the elections. I mean, they think that. I mean,
but the problem is that we're still dealing with perception theater. So when we see the giant F curve on TV, on SOS readouts in Wisconsin, and you guys had F curves, I think, both in 2024 and in 2020. That means there's manipulation in the election night reporting, which means what you're seeing is not real. There's an injection that's taking place to manipulate perception. The fact that you've got mail-in ballots that come in, that means that you don't have a closed system where you can take any stock. So a lot of us will look at the metrics and we'll see what's reported on the screen and say, and we'll try to draw conclusions from the fact that voter ID passed. And what I'm saying is press pause. Why do you have any confidence whatsoever on what's being projected on a TV screen? And so a lot of people that aren't informed will sit there and say, look, they'll make the argument that you just made, and it's no disrespect to you, but they'll say, hey, look, voter ID it's a bipartisan issue. We both want it. That's not how the infrastructure is set up. And in fact, you can create a PSYOP and say, look, our elections are fine. See, voter ID passed. And what I want to get across your viewers is that if you're part of Team Evil and you're part of the Uniparty, you can live with voter ID. What you cannot live with is keeping the machines or getting rid of the machines and getting rid of the mail-in ballots. And here's why. Voter ID does not solve your chain of custody problem. So the fact that people are stuffing ballot boxes, the voter ID doesn't solve that problem. So think of this from a standpoint of someone that wants to subvert elections. You can live with voter ID. There's lots of states that have voter ID, and we're still not getting people across the victory line, if that makes sense.
Well, I will say this much though. So drop boxes, which were gone in Wisconsin and then came back, because this is why the Supreme Court is so expensive and important in Wisconsin. Okay, because then that could get overturned, and they wouldn't want that. Because we've seen the problems with drop boxes. I mean, most of us have watched 2,000 Mules at this point. Okay, I mean, this is a big secret. And mail-in, that's why a state like Washington, which is and it's actually mail-in is the wrong word. I've long said that this is ownership of words is important, because it's mail-out, mail-in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just mail in. I mean, it's not like you have to go get a ballot at a location and mail it in. No, they just send it to your door. Mm-hmm. And if you're on the Social Security database and you're an illegal, they're just going to send you the stupid ballot. Okay. So what does it mean at that point? But I want to, we were talking, I want to bring in just a piece of your movie. And for those who don't know, David did a movie. It's a full-length documentary. And you just reposted this on your X account. So tell people how to find you on X really quickly, so they can go watch the whole movie if they want to.
Yeah, at the Profs Record, the PROFS Record. And you can go to theprofessorsrecord.com. The movie's there. It's on Rumble. I gave away the film, so people have the legal rights. If they want to download it, burn copies, post it on your own channels. But you can find it on Rumble if you put in Let My People Go documentary. There's hundreds of influencers that have uploaded it, and also on YouTube. It's a little harder to find on YouTube.
Yep. I'm gonna hit play on this, and you guys, this is just one segment. Again, I mean, there's so many. I was looking for one of those segments in here, and I couldn't find it quickly enough before the show. But this is a good one. Your wife's gonna actually talk here.
So the first pattern I looked at is our Secretary of State publishes how many people are registered in every county and every precinct on a monthly basis. So I started by plotting that, and I found that all of the counties would change by approximately the same percentage every month. This enormous buildup in registrations in every county, and they're all going together in unison, all 33 of them.
Look at that, folks. Just look at this. This is 33 count. This is impossible. This is completely impossible. Look at that. Not one deviation.
And then I plotted how many people were being registered by day for each county. They had this perfect weekly repeating pattern. So I just knew that isn't real, that you cannot have 8 people show up every Tuesday in Doña County to register. And, 6 of them are going to be Democrats and 1 will be a Republican and 1 will be a declined state.
Is this not wild to people? I mean, do you guys see this? Do you guys understand that this is an impossibility? Yes or no in the chat. There's no way you can't take this large of a group of numbers. You could potentially see like out of 33, 2 might have the same metric, but this is not how math works.
Neil, only that, notice the red line that's associated with Republicans. Notice how it never exceeds the blue line. So it's always under what the Democrat threshold. And if you were to do the same analysis the next week, that's what she's saying, is that this same graph will materialize every single week.
This is wild. I wanted to show that. Do you think I should let this play just a little bit more, or did we get
a little bit more? It's all gold.
Okay.
That's just not how people do things, especially not in 2020 when everything was shut down.
If you think about like a dashboard where you can watch a vote happening in real time, somebody could sit there and easily figure out, okay, my candidate needs to have X amount of votes. I have all of the things I need to fabricate that. I have all the vote rolls. I have all the mail-in ballot rolls that I can clearly just turn on, fabricate whatever result I need. And then that is essentially given as the official tabulated result, basically from their website. Now for the absentee ballot tracking module.
So, I mean, again, folks, you can watch this whole movie. He put it up. It's free. It's free. Just go to X and watch the thing. It's free, here I'll even go, because this is here he is. This is his page at the Prof's Record right here. Okay. And there he is. Okay. So I'm going to just go like this, and I will post it in the chat for you. I'm going to make this so easy for you lovely people, because, knowledge is power right there. There you go. You can follow. You can go watch the whole movie. It's like 2.5 hours. Get some popcorn. Don't say it's too long. Okay. If you want to understand
what's the definitive movie. Like, look, the reason why the people that follow me, Neil and Seth Cashel, why we're so passionate about our messaging that we're right and Conservative Inc. is wrong is because we work with experts. That film is full of nation state experts that have Q and SCI top national security clearances. So it's not my position. You'll hear from people like Jeff Lenberg, who spent 31 years at San Diego National Labs. He was the one that was responsible for locating the shift of 7,000 votes in Antrim County, Michigan. He's the one that did great tests there. You had Harry Howery, who was a co-author of the Help America Vote Act years ago. And he's gone on record saying that there's no compliance with the Help America Vote Act. So we take a wrecking ball to all of the talking points with people that, in my opinion, have the best credentials in the country.
Well, and I think what's really key here about all of this, and folks, do me a favor, please smash that like, share this stream out. I want to get, we're almost at 1,000 people here. Just to get this up over 1,000. But I don't care what side of the political aisle people are on. Okay. I really don't. And I want you to think in terms of, we're having this discussion in every single election. I don't care if a Democrat or Republican wins. Everybody talks about fraud. So I want you just to say you don't believe that there's any fraud at all. Just go there with me. Okay. You don't believe there's none, but everybody thinks there is. Then don't you need to somehow assure the public, when it's a constitutional republic, that there isn't? I mean, wouldn't that be the obvious thing that needs to be done if we're going to be governed as a, what in the Pam Bondi is going on in Wisconsin? Somebody super chatted, what in the Pam Bondi is going on in Wisconsin? But, I think it just would behoove them to at least prove that we're idiots.
Well, Neil, this is one of the big talking points, was that after Trump won in November, I had everyone from the Snake News media saying, "Are you now going to concede that nothing's wrong with our elections and move on from your conspiracy theories, Clements?" And I told him, no. I said, like, the difference between me and your radical left Democrats is that even now I'm in favor of audits, even though my guy won. And what you're going to find, it wasn't a 77 million to 75 million outcome. No one believes that Kamala Harris got 75 million. That means she would have been in the top 4 of the most historically popular candidates for president. Are you kidding me?
She did have a great cackle. I mean, it's be honest here.
Well, she had a great cackle. But the point being is that you notice when Hillary said, the election was stolen from her in 2016, she never demanded an audit because it would have revealed the golden goose, basically the machines and the architecture behind the scenes. And right now, everyone that really cares about election integrity, we're completely fine with you opening the books. And what you're going to find is Trump didn't eke it out by 2 million. He likely got 90 million. And Kamala was lucky if she got 60 million. I mean, I've got many experts that have done their numbers. It's not even close. And so we should be completely on board with transparency and audits and throwing things open. And I think Trump's ahead of it. I mean, this executive order that he has crafted, it's a great start. And you're already seeing the fallout. Adrian Fontes, who's the Secretary of State of Arizona, has already published to the world that he's going to defy the executive order. So as your super chat person said, what in the Pam Bondi, we're going to see if Pam Bondi, the DOJ's office, Kash Patel are serious about enforcing the law, because there's going to be a reckoning pretty quickly.
Well, I'm just looking up these numbers here for people because I want to make sure. The population, just so you know, of Milwaukee County, at the 2020 census was 939,489. Dane County is 400, and I'm going to pull this in just so you guys know I'm not fibbing you. Okay. Always. So here it is. Here's Dane County, population. This stops at 2014, but I mean, it's not like it's grown that much. I could find another graph, but 489. Okay. 489,000. Here's Milwaukee County sitting at 939,489. Yet, look at this. This isn't the exact one I was looking for. This is, but here's something interesting. So Mandela Barnes, who ran for Senate, somehow supposedly pulled out 77%, which is still almost hard to believe. But this is the U.S. Senate. 231,000 votes in a U.S. Senate on-year election. Okay. And then Susan Crawford, 232,000, 82%. I mean, it's not, I mean, I don't know. I follow politics for a while. That doesn't make any sense. And then as Peter Berninger posted out here too, Supreme Court race, Brown County, Green Bay results on the right, 77,000 voted. Note the percentages. So if you look here, so here's the percentages, 48.25. Okay. Wait, what the heck did that go, man? I was just trying to move that ahead. Now it's gone. It left. Anyways, it's the same percentage. Okay. The exact same percentage, which again, these things just are too odd. They're just, and I get, people say, well, Neil, come on, that doesn't work. Where's the proof? Where's the proof? I don't know. At some point, circumstantial evidence, did you know that actually is admissible in court? You're a law professor. You were, I should say, a law professor. They admit circumstantial evidence in certain cases you can build the preponderance of evidence. And furthermore, statistical analysis is common.
It's not circumstantial evidence. This is quantitative evidence. And so when you start seeing percentage breakdowns where you've got the use of decimal points, first of all, stop. We're not, if it's one person, one vote, you shouldn't see the phenomena of splitting percentages in half. So that right there is quantitative evidence that you've got a weighting effect that's taking place. Should not have 48.25, 6, 7%. That's a red flag. The other thing is that we're not guessing about the elections subverting the will of the people. There are records that we've proven time and time again show whether or not it's been subverted. And one of those records is the cast vote record summary. And so anytime we've been able to secure the cast vote record, was basically a replay of how people cast their votes on election night. You will either see a natural data that looks like a natural election, or you're going to see something that looks like an injection for the preferred candidate and a linear drive towards a predetermined set point. That's a PID control. It's impossible. And I can tell you in your audience that there have been over 1,000 cast vote record summaries that have been analyzed across the country. And every area where there is use of a high-speed tabulator, we see a PID controller. So again, this isn't circumstantial. This is basically looking at a record that is required under HAVA, the Help America Vote Act, to see if there's manipulation of the sequence of votes. And when we have access to that record, we're seeing industrial scale, nation state subversion of our elections. And to date, no one has debunked anything in the documentary. And we produced 2 election fraud reports out of New Mexico where we audited 8 counties. 3 years in, not one substantive point that we put out has been debunked. They avoid us like the plague. And experts that I represent Jeff Lemberg. He was one of the people that was deposed in the curling case, one of the famous cases that was just dismissed.
Yes.
After
8 years, after 8 freaking years.
Yeah, after 8 years. But even in that case, CISA had to say, yeah, we've got compromised tabulators. Remember, they put out the redacted report saying that there's massive vulnerabilities here. So, we're not making that up. The difference now is that you've got different parts of the deep state that are falling apart, in large part due to DOJ's efforts to basically just cut off funding. And so many of the bad actors that were in place before are falling to the wayside, and that gives us a fighting chance. But we have to stop with the gaslighting that somehow we don't have the receipts that the machines have been subverted. We have the receipts, but people with credentials like a Jeff Lemberg, like a Dr. Walter Doherty, you'll notice that they never want them to take the stand. They never want them on the record. And I'll give you a concrete example. There is litigation in Michigan from Dana Nessel and a corrupt special prosecutor by the name of DJ Hilson that sued Stephanie Lambert, Matthew DePerno. These names should sound familiar because they got experts to take a hold of the equipment and examine them. And they found that they were subverted. And so instead of having my client testify, they've shunned him like the plague because he doesn't help their case. They want to manufacture a narrative. This is happening across the country.
Yeah, this is, it's, by the way, New Mexico. I did apply for New Mexico elk, so maybe I'll see you down there this year.
Would love to have you.
I just, but it's a tough draw. Your state is hard for outer staters to get tags for. But folks, please do smash that like. Do chat in with where you're from. We'll bust 1,000 here right now. But I wanted to pull in. Is this the one? Yeah, this. So, talk to me about this. So Peter Berniger filed a 45-page criminal complaint with the FBI against these politicians and their campaign cohorts. Susan Crawford for Wisconsin, Susan Crawford personally, Crawford's treasurer. So this is this is a guy you should subscribe to on X2. Okay. Peter Berniger. I mean, if you don't, you need to. It's just at Peter Berniger. You can see him right there. Okay. Maybe I can just grab that. I'll throw it in the chat here for you if you're on X. And I'm going to repost this too if it makes it easier for you just to go to my page and find this. There, watch this. I'm going to repost this. Okay. And then I'm going to put his handle right here for you. Okay. Because you got to be following this guy because he's so this takes a tremendous amount of work to file this. Okay. I just don't want to minimize his efforts. And he has filed this basically as smurfing and criminally laundering money into campaigns. So money is still behind all of this. Okay. They are still showing up in force in the neighborhoods, but we got wire fraud, mail fraud, you name it. And all of this is outlined. So this takes a tremendous amount of work. But do you think, David, that there's hope that this actually gets, prosecutions? Are we going to, I think everybody on my channel, myself, we just want some people to go to jail. This is where we're at. Okay. Will we ever see that?
Well, look, as a longtime prosecutor, I was a prosecutor for about a decade. And I've had murder cases that took 8 years between the murder and justice to take place. And so sometimes you have to be patient. I've always considered 2020 to be a sting operation, meaning the same machines and software, rig processes were in place in 2016, yet they didn't have the mail-in ballot architecture to cover up the digital subversion. So Trump showed up on the scene, destroyed the push polls, which were fake, and you didn't have the engine that was mail-in ballots to basically flood, create the paper trail, and Hillary was stuck. So almost immediately from 2017 to 2020, you had bad actors creating the demand for mail-in ballots through the COVID pretext, and that's what happened. And so they were able to do that, but you still had a historically unpopular president in Joe Biden, where no one believed what was reported on the TV screens. And so I see things a little bit differently. I don't think that Trump can just somehow miraculously be deprived of an election in 2020 and somehow beat the infrastructure. How in the world did he get in November of this last year if what I'm saying is true? And so I've got two observations. Number one, in key swing states, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, Arizona, you didn't see the F curve this time, which means there had to have been an intervention to prohibit someone digitally injecting votes on election night reporting. That's huge, because you're taking away the ability of the mainstream media to report something and just basically call races based on what's being generated on TV. That didn't happen. Number two,
I want to ask you a question on that. Do you believe that the efforts to clean up the voter rolls assisted us in getting there?
No, because we haven't cleaned up the voter rolls. Simply designating something as inactive where it was once active is not cleaning the voter rolls. And so when people say we purged 500,000 people from the voter rolls, in the digital space, that means nothing. You can instantaneously bring them back. In fact, if you look at, every time there's a headline of hundreds of thousands of people being removed from the rolls, just press pause, wait, half a year for the next primary general election. And what you'll see is a massive inflation. So that video clip that you showed from Let My People Go was a perfect example that in the lead up to 2020, we saw on a certain date in all 33 counties, mass inflation of the voter rolls in microseconds. We saw that happen in Hawaii. We saw that happen in Florida. So it's a sieve. Unless you really get back to something that's a closed system architecture, you can't clean up the voter rolls. I think what happened in November was there was massive outages in certain places where integrated software like Total Vote, for whatever reason, didn't operate. And that was a good thing. You had cease and desist orders where vans that showed up in Pennsylvania that were carrying what was purported to be tens of thousands of ballots after the deadline were actually stopped. They did not allow the mail-in ballots to come in. In fact, there was a Supreme Court case that said that it's illegal to do so. But this time, they actually were successful in keeping those ballots out of the tabulation room. So the two things that you have to have happen is you got to control perception through election night reporting. That happened in Pennsylvania. And number two, you have to stop the influx of fraudulent ballots being counted after 8 o'clock at night or after election day. That also happened. So Trump somehow was able to have eyes on to stop an intervention digitally and also through the paper where it mattered. So no one questions whether or not he's legitimate. But at the same time, when you look at Arizona, California, all those places that I mentioned before, it's clear that we lost down ballot races. There were many candidates that should have been elected like Trump that weren't. So it was kind of this really weird operation in some respects that Trump's in. And you also have this Doge effort that came out of nowhere. So I'm not one of these people that buys the notion that Elon and Trump just all of a sudden, found this great synergy after he was almost assassinated. I'm not someone that believes that, RFK Jr. called up Trump and said, "Hey, I just feel so bad that someone tried to assassinate you. Would you appoint me to HHS?" I think the vetting of both Elon and RFK Jr. go back years. And then it changes the way that you're looking at things, because when you see just like they're on rocket fuel at Doge, they're identifying systems, the the Social Security stuff that you mentioned, at such lightning speed that it's clear that he had a plan. And right now, people are being rocked to their core. This Social Security fraud issue is huge because when you understand how voter rolls
Yes.
Are created, it's all tied to Social Security. So he's already planting the seed that there's really nothing that we can have confidence in. So I've got lots of theories, but I think that he won Pennsylvania not because of early voting, not because of mail-in ballots, not because of embracing these fraudulent practices. Is that there were interventions that stopped those fraudulent practices from being felt to the degree that Team Evil would want you to have.
Well, I definitely there. I mean, I was watching the army of lawyers that were in Pennsylvania that Trump had assembled and put there, and that actually observers that they had on site. They did a good job there. I mean, that was Trump's campaign working with his daughter-in-law at the RNC that really drove that, getting those people in place. But you know, so there certainly were interventions, I guess, in place, as you say.
I'm talking about on a whole nother level. There's nothing that Michael Watley or Laura Trump could do to stop what I'm suggesting. What I'm saying is that you've got someone named Elon Musk who is in charge of Starlink, who's got high level national security clearances through Space Force. And so there had to have been something on a whole other level to stop people from creating that F curve where we're just injecting, 20,000 votes here, 20,000 votes there for the opposition. What I'm saying is that phenomena, to the degree that it happened in 2020, for whatever reason, in Pennsylvania and in Georgia, these critical states, it didn't happen this time. And what I can tell you is that in 2020, those systems were wide open. There's this thing called Albert sensors that allows you to monitor election data real time.
Mm-hmm.
These are computers that reside behind county and precinct firewalls. So the government, a government that hates MAGA, hates Trump, can watch all of the data real time. And the integrated software that's also working in tandem allows you to make adjustments and change the data. I can't tell you why specifically that didn't happen this time, other than you had interesting things like Elon Musk. I mean, Joe Rogan even talked about it. He's like, hey, Elon told me, he showed me his phone. He says Trump won. And this was long before you had the final call. It was like at 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening. I don't know if you remember that. Joe Rogan's like, yeah, Elon just pulled out an app on his phone and says, I'm not worried Trump won. Where is he getting that data? Where does he get those metrics? And I think there's a whole nother level of information that Trump had at his disposal where he's not relying on RNC attorneys. I guess that's what I'm trying to convey.
Fair enough. I mean, I find this a fascinating conversation. I am amazed at how well organized this machine is, because there's the machines, the things that you're talking about, but they go all in on everything. I mean, it's the census data. We were basically robbed of 7 seats just off census data alone. Florida should have picked up another seat. Texas, I think, should have picked up 2. New York should have lost a seat. Minnesota should have lost a seat. I mean, so basically, I mean, there was just this whole thing on that. Then you've got the 20 to 30 million illegals dumping into the country, which are inflating the numbers for the census in certain areas. So, I mean, it's a compounded thing with the census. So it's not just that you have the 20 to 30 million, but then they're also misappropriating numbers to keep congressional seats in blue districts. And this is, again, why the Wisconsin race is so important, because
you're right. The census data is absolutely key. The assigning of a social security number to illegal aliens is key, because I need to tell people it's not as if the illegal alien is actually voting, but what it allows is by putting their identity in a database, they can generate a ballot that's tied to a voter ID that's tied to their social security number. And the fact is, that those people aren't going to show up. So you can use their name, their voter ID, create a fraudulent ballot, stuff it in a drop box, and no one's going to know to complain it. So it's not like you have a high propensity voter that goes in and, checks out a voter history saying, what the hell happened here? I didn't vote, or I did vote, but I didn't vote for this person. You're negating all of that by generating fraudulent ballots tied to real people that aren't voting. And they'll never have the wherewithal to actually check or audit the system. And
Well,
so
that's what Liz
yeah.
Harris completely exposed in Arizona when she went around and did her canvassing efforts. I mean,
Yeah.
like canvassing. I mean, I remember how big time it was, how the Democrats got so worked up over canvassing. And I'm like, well, then canvassing is where it's at, man. What's going on in the canvassing? And then you were looking at the numbers, you're going, holy crap, this is nuts. But you know that when they go all in because they're like freaked out, that some lady down in Arizona, Liz Harris, puts together a bunch of gals who run around and ask people, how many people live here, do you vote, and all this stuff. And you're like, wait, a third of these people didn't vote, but it says you voted. And they were freaking out because they were illegals, and then they were concerned that they were going to get deported. I remember these videos. They were concerned they were going to get deported because they're like, oh gosh, people are going to find out we voted. We didn't vote. I didn't vote. So
Yeah. Well, and the response to that was from Merrick Garland was that they were so worried about canvassing, because canvassing is actually a great tool for auditing.
Yeah.
And they said, well, no, it's racist. You're violating people's
Racist.
by intimidating. And it wasn't just Liz Harris. We did canvassing in Otero County.
Yes.
And we found that there was a 40% discrepancy on voter information that was being supplied by the SOS office and what we heard at the door. A 40% error rate. And this is a red county where it's all Republicans. And so that also lends credence to our theory that it's mostly machine driven, because you're seeing manipulation in red states. And usually what you see is the manifestation taking place in primaries. So a lot of people need to get their heads around, like, why would there be cheating in deep red areas? Well, you're trying to get uniparty rhinos through the primary. So if you're a bad actor, you don't really care if the uniparty Democrat or the uniparty Republican wins, as long as you can maintain the status quo.
Yeah. Well, primaries are where it's at. I'm always telling people like primaries, but then, yeah, I mean, to the point, because look, say Mike Rogers had won the Senate seat in Michigan, which, he probably did. I don't like Mike Rogers. I'm actually glad he's not. I'm actually glad he didn't win. And it's going to be a terrible take for a lot of people, but I'm just going to come out and say it. I mean, I didn't have any time for Mike Rogers. He's a complete neocon, warmonger, Trump hater, all of it. Okay. I didn't want Mike Rogers in there. Had he won, it would have been even harder to get rid of him, because it's easier to get rid of him in the primary, because although you can have fraud occurring, do you know what I love about Minnesota? This is interesting. We do caucusing, right? Now we do have a primary election, but it is really hard to defeat the person that during the caucuses and the state convention actually becomes the party's nominee. It's very difficult to do that. And I love caucuses because you go there and you literally, like, you tear a piece of paper like this and you put the name down on it and it goes in a hat. Okay. So I always keep telling people, why don't you show up at your caucuses? Because your vote will never be more real. It will never count at a greater rate than it will at your caucuses. And,
I agree. But even the uniparty's figuring that out. So you'll find in more states are getting away from having that piece of paper that you just ripped and you put it in a bowl and have people that can count and be watched. Now they're using apps on their phone. And that's actually what happened with Chairman Whatley. One of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of the guy that's co-leading the RNC, even though a lot of people are praising him to the high heavens, is that there were serious questions about whether he won the chairperson election in North Carolina, because they were having everyone vote through digital apps. So to the degree that people can weaken transparency and having a robust system, you're going to see everyone that's corrupt continuing to push for a centralized counting system that's all based on quote unquote convenience, instead of just doing things that are open to the public. The old piece of paper, write down a name, cast your vote. We have to turn back the clock if we want to have better systems. And so to the degree that we can go from open system architecture to closed system, it's essential. I mean, if we're going to carry the House and the Senate next year, we have to have some swift action from Trump, and it's got to happen soon.
Yeah, we actually need some prosecutions is what we need. And so I just again, I mean, I can't, I know I'm like a broken record. I understand, but I just, if we don't have that, what do we have? I mean, so we're finding out, okay, we're going to close this show out really shortly, folks. I'm going to give one more pitch for Mike Lindell here at MyPillow, mypillow.com, promo code lumberjack. The MyCross is 30% off. This is the big one though, folks. Go get yourself some of these sheets. I love these sheets. I love these sheets. This is Trump's favorite product. You want to sleep like a president? Go get yourself some Giza sheets. I'm serious. It's the best thing ever. I mean, as low as $29.98 for the percales on queens, $34.98 for kings. I've only seen this deal one other time. It is the best price he's ever run on sheets. So go get yourself some because they're the best. I love them. I just love them. I love good sheets. I didn't know sheets were a thing, David. I didn't know they were a thing. And now I'm like, oh, don't touch my sheets. I'm Giza all the way. I got Giza flannel. I got Giza regular. I mean, I'm into these sheets. But I didn't give you the 800 number. MyPillow.com/lumberjack, or folks call 800-568-2865. Again, that's 1-800-568-2865. That's my favorite way of ordering that. So, all right. I want to get to your closing thoughts, but I know I keep beating the prosecution drum. But it is, to me, this is what's needed. I saw the report come out on the Social Security Administration and all the fraud in Social Security. And they're talking about how they're going after people who are voting. They are actually prosecuting. I mean, these are criminal referrals to the FBI that they are prosecuting criminal illegals who voted. Okay, great. Fine. That's not who I want to see prosecuted the most, though.
Yeah.
Why do we have these people with Social Security numbers in the first place? And the people who are assigning Social Security numbers to them at the high level, not the workers, because they're just like doing their job, probably punching keys in a keyboard. I'm talking, this is like, do you remember the 2008 financial crisis, right? And 2009, all that? And who went to jail? Some low-level dude, when all these other people pulling billions out of our financial system got off scot-free. I want the people who are, like you're talking, industrial scale. That's the people I want thrown in jail.
You're right. You're absolutely right. So my closing thoughts, Neil, is 2020 on a providential level did something. When Trump did not seize the machines, even though he had legal authority through an executive order to combat foreign interference, many people, myself included, were frustrated. You've got the legal authority to seize the tabulators. Why didn't you? It's because he's smarter than us, because we were brainwashed. We did not know to the degree that we do now that big pharma, incredibly evil, big tech, incredibly evil, big media, incredibly evil. 4 short years later, even though it feels like a lifetime, distrust in those very entities is at the highest. He could not have convinced the American people through a shadow of a doubt that he was legitimate if he would have seized the machines. He knew that.
Yeah.
And so you have to look at the reverse brainwashing. And basically what he's done, by my estimation, is he has reverse engineered what Yuri Bezmenov set forth. Many people are familiar with Yuri Bezmenov on how you take over a country for communism. And that's you have to demoralize Americans. And look, for the longest time, it was really uncool to be a Republican. It was really uncool to tell anyone that you voted for Trump. We were demoralized. We were looking at Canada and Europe. Let's be more like them. You also had to destabilize a nation. Then you have a crisis point, and then you've got to normalize that. And look, think about what Trump's done. Make America great again. He has moralized the nation. It is now cooler to be a Republican than to be one of these lefty commies. He has provided stability where there's been destabilization. He is solving crisis after crisis, specifically the border. Yes. And so there's a level of confidence where he is solving problems really quickly. I don't think he did all of that, survived an assassination attempt, got back in through a miraculous, result in November, only to sell us short. I think his own survival depends on arrests and prosecutions. And so what I will leave with you is a faith proposition. I can't say that you need to believe in anything I'm saying. I just don't believe we were taken to this point to fall on our face. I think we're going to see prosecutions, and he's got time, but when he pulls the trigger, he's got to do it in a way that everything's lawful, everything's done by the book. And to your point, they've got to be the right people. This has to be, the cartel members at the highest level, or all you're going to do is see a new iteration of corruption. So I think he's done enough to give him a little bit more time, not a whole lot. By my estimation, if we don't have arrests before September, then I'll push the panic button. But because we need at least a year's worth of runway to make sure that we run an honest election in 2026.
Well said. I agree with that. I totally agree with that. I mean, I've been telling, I see the comments in my chat and people are just very impatient, and I get it. But I do think, people, you have to accept the fact that it was God's grace that Trump wasn't in the White House in 2020. I mean, well, 2021, but I mean, you have to accept that that was God's grace for us. And it was hard at first because I was pissed off. I think a lot of people were, but you know, we wouldn't know what we know now. I've followed politics for a long time. Okay. I started a YouTube channel, and well, I had an existing YouTube channel, but it was just there. You know what I mean? Just used it to share some of my video projects with clients. But when November 2020, that's when I really started producing videos, because I was like, what the heck is going on? But before this, I was, you know, kind of, I don't know, retail politics, right? You know, you got to go out and hustle votes and win it. And, you know, it's advertising and all that. I did think Republican political strategists were the biggest idiots on the face of God's green earth. I always knew they were some sort of planned subversion of conservatives. I mean, they always were. I mean, seriously.
And that's still true. And that's still true.
Yeah, no, they're just idiots. I mean, complete and total. I mean, you can't be that dumb on purpose without doing it on purpose is what I'm trying to say. I mean, that they are so stupid. The campaigns they run are so dumb. And then they are even running Democrats as Republicans. I've proven that through a report I did on Georgia. But it's, you know, but he definitely woke me up to a lot.
Well, Neil, you know, let's just take it back to your faith and my faith. We're both Christians. Paul has something that I think he wrote. He says, if I'm wrong about Christ and I'm wrong about the gospel, there's no more pitiable creature than I. And I feel the same way about being all in on MAGA. I mean, I gave up my profession. I mean, I've been canceled. I've been destroyed by the media. And I put in all of my chips, and I have faith that Trump is a once in a lifetime, once in, you know, several generations. He is a Washington. He is an Abraham Lincoln. So the folks out there that are frustrated, I understand, but don't give up now, because we are so close to victory. And the biggest regret you're going to have is, you know, you basically, you know, give up. We might have victory in the next 2 weeks. We don't know. But there are victories. I mean, could you imagine how we would feel right now if Kamala was the commander in chief? I mean, so let's take stock of the victories that we've had. And we've lived to fight another day. And for the first time in 4 years, we are having conversations about election fraud on YouTube when this video would have been canceled.
Oh gosh. I mean, I was at 2 strikes, 3 times. 3 times I had to just stop producing content.
Yeah. So, you know, like enjoy the victories. This is the first time in recent memory. I'm investigated all the time by the bar. I'm always in trouble for stuff. But I really feel like we're fighting with the wind at our backs now. And so just have faith, pray. And if you're a complainer, consider doing something that gets you off of the couch and do something in your local community. We have an abundance of professional complainers and not enough people that will risk much to do the right thing locally.
Yeah, I encouraged a lot of my people just to even become poll watchers, election judges, just get involved in the apparatus so that, you know, for multiple reasons. One is, I mean, you can spot things going on at polls, but the other thing is now you're involved. Now you're involved in the apparatus. When we get the apparatus fixed, look, we go back to hand counted paper ballots. We're going to need people to do that work. And I will guarantee you, it's going to cost less money. We covered this the other night. It's going to cost us a lot less money than these machines. You're going to get better results, and you're going to know on election night. It's going to be glorious. So everybody should be all in on hand-counted paper watermark ballots, okay? This should be your cry going forward, nonstop. You know, it's not that all the other issues aren't important, but I mean, if we're not getting real results, what the heck are we doing? It's like people like abortion. It's a big issue for me, okay? But the reality is, if I can't vote in the person who I believe will actually do good things in that front, well, then we're out. Yeah. And I I look at so many things that are all centered to this one issue. So folks, don't give up the fight. Get involved. Like David says, do not just be complainers. I mean, I see it. It's all over social media and everything. In fact, I would encourage you spend less time on social media. And you know, I mean, even if you don't watch as many of my videos, I don't care. If you're involved in the process and you're doing the work, you know, I'm just trying to get some information out there. It's, you know, what I do here. I am an election judge. I've been a poll watcher. I go to big precinct caucuses. It's just, all this stuff is vitally important, and it may not be super glamorous, but local is where it's at. All right,
man.
We'll catch you on the next episode. Oh,
if I could just do one
Yeah.
quick plug, it's not for my pillow, but just for the folks that are watching this again, I did create a film that's free, and so the degree that anyone out there has an account, you can take the film from Rumble, Let My People Go documentary. If you got an email list, share it. It's absolutely free, but any help that I can get to spread the word on why it's so critical that we solve the election rigging problem, I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, so this is one thing you can do on social media that's going to be powerful. You can just, this is his handle on X, folks, at the Prof's Record, and you just posted something about that video, so it's close to the top of your feed here. I'm going to make this really easy for you. I'm going to put it right at the top of my feed right now. There it is. So you guys who are following me on X, you can go get this. Then you can just link over, follow David over there. You can watch his documentary. Mine handle, of course, most of you are probably subscribed to me already, but it's just at Neil E. Johnson, or you can go over to the Prof's Record and make sure to subscribe to him on X as well. And Peter Berniger, who I already mentioned before, you know, you and Peter connect quite a bit, I know. Let me just
yeah, he's doing amazing work for sure.
He is. I mean, filing criminal complaints and everything against these people takes a tremendous amount of work. So anyhow, we'll see you on the next episode, folks. Keep the faith, you know, keep in the fight, and keep praying for our nation. We need it. All right. Love y'all. Peace out.